Hello, Tide fans, and welcome back to Tide Talk. As you can see, we got a full guest. We've got a full crew up here this week. I'm going to go from left to right, so I'm going to introduce Sheriff Taylor, my brother, Sheriff Taylor. We've talked about him a few times on the show. He's going to have a chance to voice his own concerns or opinions. Maurice Booth is back with us. Of course, I'm Sean Taylor, and this is my buddy Jimmy Messick. So we're here again, 5 games in, kind of where we all thought we would be. We kind of anticipated 5-0. I think that even the conversation prior to the camera turning on, and hey, that camera right there, Maurice.
Yeah, this one?
Okay. Prior to the camera coming on, we're all sitting here talking about, and we're kind of picking things apart. And we've done that a little bit on the show. Now, I want to go ahead and make the statement. I don't think, especially the three of us, because we've done this a few times, and Heath will be able to add in a minute, but I don't think we're just spoiled Alabama fans. And I preface that with just spoiled Alabama fans. I know we're spoiled because we're so accustomed to. But let's just jump right into talking about the defense. And that's going to be different because we always start the show talking about the offense. So we're going to start out talking about the defense. Jimmy, we were saying before the show about how disappointed we were, and we've not been able to stop the run and things like that. You made a comment that you've heard that the things are fixable and it's coaching, we are coachable. What's your thoughts on that?
I mean, we keep hearing things are fixable,
right?
Coachable. Still waiting on that to happen, of course.
Yes.
I still believe that part of it is youth. I mean, we're starting 4 true freshmen.
4 freshmen.
We lost leadership before the season started. You can't just replace that overnight. We have a coach that's still kind of vanilla as far as with his responsibility, as far as our defensive coordinator is concerned. So you have to consider that. Disappointed, of course, but again, I think there's some reasons for that.
Maurice, do you think that the coaching, this being his first, kind of defensive coordinator, where he's actually making the calls, do you think that has a lot to do with it, or?
Good question, Sean.
No, you don't have to hold that.
Oh, my bad. I thought it was like a walkie-talkie. The same thing happened this time last year, as we were talking before. Arkansas scored 31 on us. It was the last time that defensive coordinator was calling the plays. I watched the post-game press conference too, where Saban was talking about things that are coachable and so forth. He brought up several things that he wasn't asked, and it was almost like, well, this is on his mind, obviously. And it seemed to be stopping the run, defensive line, linebackers, which he said he made a point to call them out to say, hey, it's not a youth problem. They're playing really good. I was like, nobody asked you that. So that's obviously
right on his brain, right?
So I don't know. They always say Jimmy and Joe's versus X's and O's, and I don't know if we got the Jimmys or the Joes right now on defense.
Okay.
So my 2 cents.
Sheriff Taylor,
I think that the youth has something to do with it. Maybe the coach has something to do with it. From my take on it, it's just being undisciplined. We have more defensive penalties this year, jumping off sides, lining up off sides. I mean, gosh, Jimmy says, well, they're young, and I agree with that, but they're still a 5-star. Almost every player on that field is a 5-star guy.
Yeah.
And they've been playing this game forever. And so they know when they're lining up off sides or if they're not jumping when the ball snapped or whatever. But, I mean, it just feels like what Maurice said earlier in the year when I watched the show, we're not focused on defense. Yeah. I don't know why, but it just don't feel like that our defense has gelled yet, and it don't feel like that we're as focused as we have been in the past.
Well, we can go back to the comment that you made, I think the first show, which was, we're getting ready to play Duke. It's the first game of the year, and some of our leaders, some of the guys that are supposed to be leaders on the team, are being suspended,
Right.
and so focus, discipline, all those things start coming into play. Those words are thrown out there, which certainly, we're not in the middle of it. We're not in the locker room. We don't know. We talked about this before. I'm going to say, it's that leadership. Where is that one guy that, I remember 4 years ago, Ashawn Robinson talking about, if he had to grab somebody up to get them to get on board or to focus, that's what took place. You don't hear about that anymore.
Great point, because I maybe was thinking that Jennings was going to be that guy, but personally, I haven't really seen it, at least not on the field. I mean, again, when you lose those two guys in the middle, somebody does have to step up in that role, and you're right. I haven't seen it personally.
Well, the anticipation coming into the year was it was Dylan Moses. I mean, everybody expected that guy to be Dylan Moses, the consensus All-American, or preseason All-American, and then he goes down with an injury. What we've had injuries in the past. We talked about that also on the show about, this is not the first time that we've started the year with people being injured, and why is that? But we've had people step up in those roles, and we're just not seeing that from a defensive perspective this year. They talk about they talk about McKinney being that guy. You saw him on Saturday. He's pointing out, But is that the guy? We're not used to that. We're not used to it being a safety.
Well, you had it one time with Minka.
Right.
And he was, because he, from what I've read, got into some players. But to me, I don't think there is a leadership when the ones that you expected to be leaders aren't there.
Right.
And where is Davis? Raekwon Davis. I mean, you're the biggest cat on the team, and you ought to be snatching people up left and right if they're not.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I'm being critical, but yes.
Yeah, and I think that's that you mentioned Raekwon Davis. I think that's what people expect, from a guy that's 6'7", 316, has the physical presence, and that's what you kind of assume is going to be that guy. But I think he is having a hard enough time just performing. Again, let's go back. You think about the guys that were those alpha dogs. It was Ashawn Robinson. You didn't have an issue watching him perform because he was getting it done. Right. You're talking about Jaron Reed, Jonathan Allen. Those guys were performing. So not only were they Quentin Williams. Not only were they saying and verbalizing that leadership, but they were out there getting it done. They were doing it. Minkah Fitzpatrick. Yeah. Let's use him as from a DB perspective. Right. He's out there getting it done. His performance is reflective of being that leader. Right. And I think that's probably and maybe.
So what about this idea? The fact that we don't have that alpha guy that's getting in people's faces, do you think that we're showing up just going through the motions still? I mean, again, we're favored by 4 or 5 touchdowns every week. We're supposed to beat these teams by 4 or 5 touchdowns, which I guess we are, but still.
No, we didn't cover this weekend.
Yeah. But because
which I knew we would.
Right.
Yeah, but because we don't have that alpha guy, that alpha dog getting in people's faces, maybe that's where some of that lack of focus is like, man, golly, really? I mean, am I going to bust my tail because we're about to beat these guys by 5 touchdowns? I mean, is that it? I don't know. I mean, it's not a great excuse for them.
Well, we went down this road last year, and then we got to January, and you saw what happened.
Yeah, that's true.
Whenever you don't have that type of leadership, and you're sitting there thinking, well, we'll just outscore them. Well, then somebody punches you in the mouth, and you don't know what to do then. Mm-hmm. And that's where we are, I think. So we've seen this movie before. So what's going to change after this break? That's going to be the biggest question in my mind. Yeah,
and I've got a comment about that, because I think that for the first time in a long time, man, years. I can't even go back to the time before that. But for the first time in a long time, we are a average defense.
Yes.
And we're 11 guys trying to come together to execute and to live up to an expectation, and it's out of the ordinary for us. We've not seen this in a long time. I mean, you go look at the stats. You know, Alabama's nowhere in the top 25 to 50 with respect to defenses, and that's never been the case. So, you know, we're in some unfamiliar territory, and Saban is trying to, you know, rally the troops, if you will. Yes, there's some youth. Yes, the defensive coordinator, it's his first time, but I think that we're uncomfortable. I think that there's some changes going to be made. I think that there's some things to come. So we're going to take a short break, but we're going to come back and we're going to talk a little bit more about the defense, because I think there's still some conversation to be had, because the DBs are playing really well, and that's something positive. So on behalf of Bob English and State Farm, we'll be right back with Tide Talk.
Enjoy the good times a little more with the right plan. As your State Farm agent, I am here to help you protect your dreams and loved ones with life insurance. With over 60 years combined State Farm experience, call me or any of my team to find out which options are best for you. Another way, we're here to help life go right.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. So we were wrapping up that last segment regarding the defense, and I want to go a little bit more with that. We've talked about some players. We've talked about the DBs and how well they've played. You know, we said coming at the beginning of the year that the DBs were going to be a positive for us this year, because they were probably the more experienced, and I think we've seen that. I think that's been fairly accurate. Yeah. You know, having Trayvon Diggs back has been a huge plus. McKinney being, you know, back there and being a smart guy, knowing the defense and making, you know, the signal calls. Heath, we hadn't fussed a lot about, you know, face guarding and not turning and finding the ball.
Yeah, but I mean, we had a couple of those, you know, this past week that they were just right there in their face and never turned, looked at the ball, and the guy turns around and makes the catch over their head, because we're not turning and looking at it. And a couple of other teams that got penalties this weekend that did the exact same thing, other games that I watched. Yeah. And so look, our defensive backs are good. There's no question about it. I just don't like that style of defending the pass.
We've had that conversation for years.
I'm not so sure that your analogy of we win more than we lose is coming to be true right now. They're jumping over us and making catches more than they're not. And so I'm just not sure that's
how many times
I'm not sure that's the right way to go. But look, for me, the defensive end play has been bad.
Yeah,
I mean,
this weekend.
They're running outside at will with us, and I just feel like that.
It was this weekend.
I think that quarterback right there was. I don't know if he's the best that we're going to see, but
he was good.
He was good.
And even if you heard what Nick Saban said, they made an adjustment on the called quarterback runs, but he was more disappointed in the fact that he was able to scramble and get outside. But listen, if you watch the game, a lot of that had to do with youth. I can tell you there were two plays where Christian Harris.
The guy running the ball was a freshman.
No. I understand. But listen, he knows where he's going, and he is an athlete, right, as opposed to a 235, 240-pound linebacker who has to use technique and angle to be able to do that, as opposed to just flat-out foot speed. So again, my point is, I watched two plays I know where we're coming at him and we're supposed to stay to the outside or upfield shoulder, right, and we come to the inside and he makes a step, runs outside, and picks up 10 or 15 yards. That's inexperience. That's the guy not taking the right angle.
You call it inexperience. I call it poor preparation.
Me too.
And that could be true.
How many times did they get yardage after being hit? I mean, we're not wrapping up. We're not doing the things we're supposed to do from a tackling perspective. I mean, they were bouncing off of us like a pinball machine. Yeah. I mean, they were getting yardage. The quarterback especially was getting yardage. He would get hit at the line of scrimmage when they'd run up the middle. When he'd run up the middle, he'd get hit at the line of scrimmage and wind up with 8 yards.
Yeah.
How is that occurring to our defense? I mean, it's just mind blowing.
Maurice, you made a good point about being prepared. I'm wondering, so because during the telecast or broadcast, they showed, I guess, the starting quarterback in some shorts and a shirt on the sideline. So when did that happen? So were we able to fully prepare for this guy? Did we know he was going to be the starting quarterback? Did we know they were going to be running this?
Good point.
I mean,
I think he played the week
so
before.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like
Both of them did.
So maybe that was part of it. Maybe we didn't spend enough time thinking somebody else was. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there.
Well, I can tell you, yeah, okay, you caught me by surprise on the first series. Now the next series you're coming
Right.
up.
Oh, yeah.
I know you're fast. I know you're going to try to get to the outside, so I'm going to contain. You can cut it inside and go at your own risk, but if I let you outside, I mean, you just lost all your responsibility.
You're going to
Right.
gash us.
That's right.
Yeah.
So now back to this too. We talked about this early in the year, and we've talked about this several times in the past as well about not showing a whole lot. Because I'm like you, Wayne, why don't we bring in a spy? Why don't we, are we not?
I said
made
the
the
same
comment.
thing.
Are we not doing that
In the middle of the
because
game,
we're
I said,
saving
why?
that, we're saving that look for who down the road that going to be running the same offense. The last game of the season. I mean, or other teams is going to be doing. I mean, so why didn't we do something? But are we not
maybe,
doing it because we don't want to
listen,
show
maybe
it yet?
that's
We
a
don't have
point.
to show it?
Maybe they're not wanting to show things like that right now this early, but it's just frustrating a little bit when you're sitting there watching it and I'm texting Sean the whole time going, why aren't we
Spying the guy.
spying the
You were
quarterback?
texting me.
I know. I was texting
mean,
everybody.
Wow.
So
But look, we've said this before, and unfortunately, Mal's not here, Heath, to be able to get us in the in the locker room so that we can ask some of these questions. But the reality is, as a former football coach, offensive coordinator, as former football players, I haven't seen us do a whole lot defensively,
No.
schematically.
Right.
I mean, so, I hate to sound like, okay, that's my crutch, because we've said that a few times. We've said it often, actually, that
but Saban's known for that.
we're not going to show a whole lot because we're outscoring people. We're winning. I didn't see there was no sense of panic. I didn't see a need for us to do anything other than line up and play football.
Who thought on that muff punt?
I was fixing to say, I had a little bit of panic when Waddle fumbled the punt and they picked it up and ran it in. I mean,
Well,
I'm not
hey,
gonna
here's the
lie.
better question between the four of us. And be honest, because you're on camera. Who knew the rule? Who thought that was a touchdown?
I did.
Yeah, we all did.
Absolutely, I did.
I was.
I absolutely did.
I really thought a muff would have been. It has to hit the ground, but it's just possession.
I thought if he touched it, the ball was live
I'm
and
gonna
they could
tell
pick
you-
it up and run
Right.
it.
I'm going to tell you that I said, and of course nobody was there because I was watching the game by myself, but I said he never had possession. Now, I didn't know the rule. I didn't know it couldn't be returned.
Does that deserve a pat on the back?
Yes.
Attaboy, Taylor. Way to get it right, Taylor.
Now, I will say,
I also had the 6 lottery numbers last week. I just didn't play it.
I didn't know the rule. I didn't know that it couldn't be returned.
Right.
But I will say that I was saying he didn't have possession of the ball ever. It was like a catch.
But I thought it was a touching. I thought if they touched the ball, if Waddle touched the ball and muffed it, it was live and could be returned.
No,
Yeah.
it can't
But I
be.
still didn't panic though.
No. I
Yeah.
knew that no punt, no
Agreed.
muff could be returned.
So again, just to kind of bring us back to, I don't think we're showing anything defensively. I have not seen a lot of blitz packages. I mean, I haven't seen many. I think I saw one safety blitz
Right.
this past Saturday.
See, that's again. Every game is we're watching it again, giving up yards, not doing this, not doing that. We're questioning what's going on. But then all of a sudden, we'll have that series, we'll have those plays. We're like, okay, where's that been all game? So it kind of makes you wonder. Okay, they'll just dial it up, just to kind of do.
Give
whatever
us some
with it.
practice.
Yeah.
Give us some reps,
'Cause
some
I'm
live
just telling
reps.
you, when we're up 3 or 4 or 5 touchdowns, we're just helmet to helmet. You know what? Let
We've
these-
got better
let
athletes.
These young guys play,
and we're going to outplay
let
them.
them see if they can get off that block. Let them see if we can just, like I say, just play football, go make plays. Because we're up 4 touchdowns. I truly believe part of that is the reason why we're seeing this defense giving up the yards and the numbers we're giving up. I just, and I could be totally wrong, but I truly feel like, because I'm one of these, I told Heath, I'm one of these, glass half full guys. I mean, I just feel like when we get into the October, November, end of October, November, I
Mike?
think it'll look like a totally new, different defense.
I have a theory. I'm sure you were asking, what's your theory, Mo? So here you
See,
go.
that was my next question.
Man, you're welcome. It's the fact that we have two, and we've kind of touched on it before, we have two freshman linebackers to call in certain blitz packages. I'll say maybe too much for them, but it is I'll say a complicated defense. It's one that you have to know backwards and forwards, and our DBs know it.
Right.
So that's why I believe that there will be more DB blitz packages as opposed to linebackers that will be blitzing.
Yeah.
So
Well, wasn't it a couple of weeks ago, Saban came out and said we were going to kind of dumb the defense down a little bit?
Yeah, they just
Well,
said it. Just said it after the Southern Miss
I
game.
think he
So-
has to.
I mean,
I think
So
he
there you
has
go.
to with the young players like Maurice is saying. I mean, I think he has to make it simple
but you also,
right
I
now.
mean, we also too. I mean, we have to give the other team a little bit of credit. I mean, they're not playing against junior high kids. I mean, they are playing against other athletes,
Division I, 4 and 5 star
I mean, you can't
athletes.
expect them to shut out everybody. There's going to be giving
I'm
up
not saying
plays. and
shut
hit-
out, but Jesus.
Well, if,
understand.
if you listen to Sheriff Taylor, then you remember the movie.
I wish you'd quit saying that. Here's my,
You remember the movie.
Yeah.
Remember the Titans when the coach comes out and says, "They're not going to gain another yard."
Yeah.
This joker don't want them to gain.
I mean, that's the
a
way
yard.
I feel, especially.
Don't want them to gain a yard.
I mean, look, we're sitting here fussing. Somebody thought we were good enough to be number one in the country, but at the end of the day, it's
29
just about
voters, by the way.
just about what we're accustomed to and what we've seen and what we know from Saban's, era of our defense,
Right.
and it's just not the same.
I wonder if that era's over though. Man, these offenses. And we talked about that before the cameras turned on.
Well, minus
I
the
think-
injuries, it's probably not.
I mean, I think the day of us just shutting people down, or anybody shutting people down, are over. I think. I mean, there's just.
That's a good point, and that'll be a great pause for us to take a quick break. We'll come back and talk about that a little bit. We'll talk about the offense. We'll talk about the record-breaking day for Devontae Smith and for Tua. So hold your seats, Tide fans. We'll be right back with Tide Talk.
In life, some things just go together, like a burger and fries, and home and auto insurance from State Farm. So make it a combo. Combining your home and auto insurance could save you time and money. And who doesn't like that? Just call me, Bob English, or any of my experienced hometown team and find out how you could start saving today. It's just another way.
All right, welcome back, Tide fans. So we were getting right back into the offense, which we normally start the show out talking about the offense. That's kind of been the
and obviously we were thirsty.
that's kind of been the topic of discussion, every week. But Jimmy, you bring up a good point. You bring up a good point as it relates to just kind of what the Big 12 sees, as you mentioned. What they're accustomed to. I don't want to believe that we're going to play defense like the Big 12.
Right.
I think that we're going to be better. I think the guys will progress. But let's talk about the offense. Let's talk about the day that Tua had. Again, only playing midway through the fourth quarter, putting up stellar numbers, breaking records, which is one of the reasons that the guys voted us number one this year.
Rock, paper, scissors.
That's right, rock. No more, by the way.
No more.
I don't know if y'all saw that. There will be no more rock, paper, scissors.
Yeah, I saw that.
Devontae Smith at the end of the game when they interviewed him, and she mentioned rock, paper, scissors. He goes, "Yeah, that won't happen no more."
I missed it.
Yeah. Saban had said something earlier in the week about he didn't know much about that, but he likes for the guys to have fun. But then at the end of the game, the post game, the girl had talking to Devontae Smith on the field, and she said, "Yeah, I guess you've been working on your rock, paper, scissors." And he said, "Oh, that won't happen no more."
So you never saw that whole.
I never saw the whole segment, so I don't even know what you're
the previous
talking
week,
about.
Ruggs was getting interviewed, and he mentioned somebody asked a question about some of these go routes and the big long touchdowns and everything, and he mentioned that all the receivers know all the different positions. They
Right.
can line inside, outside,
Right.
and when they know there's a big play about to be ran, they do rock, paper, scissors
To see
to
who
determine
goes,
who's going to get the route.
who goes in that
And
route.
they actually showed a clip
A clip.
with Judy and Devontae Smith in the Southern Miss game
leaving the sideline.
leaving the sideline doing like that. And so that was been a topic of discussion all
That's
week.
pretty
but,
funny.
But Coach Saban,
I thought it was the
Coach
greatest thing I'd
Saban
ever
shut
seen
that
on
down.
social media. I thought it was cool.
Coach
All good
Saban
out.
shut that down. So, but yeah, I mean, again, we've said this over and over. What we expected. Tua is very, very accurate. Although this past week he struggled a little bit with accuracy. I want to get y'all's opinion on why that was, especially the balls to Henry Ruggs. But offensive line playing much better, getting a little bit better protection. There was a few times where he had to scramble, but he did a really good job with that. Threw the ball well on the run.
He missed Ruggs twice. Ruggs had 5 yards on the receiver. I don't know how he
I
missed
really
him.
do think it was about the timing of his injury to where it slowed him down a little bit. It said he had a hip flexor.
It was definitely after his injury.
Yeah, and that's what they were saying. Could it be? I mean, you know, we don't really know that because I mean, I think I'm probably a 5. I think I'm a 5 flat guy.
Is that Nick?
Yeah, that is Nick calling
Nick
me.
giving us
I
a
think
call.
I'm a 5 flat guy. You know, hopefully I'm a little bit faster than that, or was back in the day. But listen, they go from running a 4.340
To 4.5.
to injuring himself and maybe being a 4.445. That makes a difference. And Tua is accustomed to throw into a 4.340 guy.
Well,
Yeah, but he's still 5 yards ahead of the defender.
Right.
You just
But-
throw it up
But
a
he
little
don't
bit.
throw it to the guy. He's
Throws to a point.
he's throwing to a
so
to a
did you
point.
see the first time he overthrew him? Ruggs looked like he was a little disgusted. You know, almost like he was disgusted with himself. Because if you see the replay,
He couldn't go get the ball.
but you also see when he comes, I think it was on that double move.
Yep.
He comes out that double move and he's not in high gear. And all of a sudden he looks up and he's like, oh crap, there's a ball. And then he kicks it in that high gear and it lands out, in front of him. And so I don't know if he was disgusted because he maybe
Started too late.
started on that high horse, that high speed too late. So to me, the first one for sure I thought was on Ruggs. Second one I'm not so sure about.
Yeah. And they talked about the pass to Brian Robinson Jr. He left it a little high.
Yeah.
Kind of got him turned around a little bit. Now, if you read what Tua said it had to do with how the sun was coming in over the stadium at that time,
And he
and the
couldn't see.
receivers came back and complained that they couldn't see the football.
Yeah. If you've been in that stadium at that corner, it is coming right down on you in that angle. So I could see.
Yeah.
It's not an excuse, but it's the truth.
Which made me think of the first ball to Ruggs. Ruggs comes out of that out and up, and he's 5 yards in front of the guy. I don't think he knows where the football is.
Yeah.
And
He
then,
sees it late,
and
and
then
he
he
tries to
catches
get-
it late. He catches a glimpse of it late, so he tries to speed up, and by that time he couldn't get to it.
Well, speaking of Robinson, I thought he looked the best that he's looked since he's.
He ran hard.
Me and you were texting earlier. That's the best I'd seen him run. He ran hard. He hit the hole.
Quicker feet.
Yeah,
feet.
had
I mean, he was
had better
quick.
feet.
Yeah.
And maybe
And it makes Najee run harder.
well they're competing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're competing for reps, and they know that every time they touch the ball, they got to do something with it because they may lose some reps otherwise. So I'm really happy with the offense. I'm happy with the way the offensive line played. We played much better.
Offensive line
I
played
think,
really well.
I think there's starting to get some continuity there, which makes a huge difference. Guys making a call, and he's accustomed to the guys that are there with him and picking up the call. I think
our suspended player came back. I'm assuming he'll probably start.
Deontay Brown coming back, and I just the hype about him and the
What
way
did you
he
see
played last year.
When he pulled and he hit that, I guess it was a linebacker. It wasn't a small guy. Knocked him back a couple of yards. That was.
Yeah, they
Welcome back.
had a lot of conversation about that. So all in all, extremely excited about the offense, about where we are. I still, if you watched the shows, if you watched Herb Street and Jesse Palmer and all those guys talking about how are you going to line up and stop Alabama's offense, because to this point, I think that's one of the reasons, again, as I mentioned before, one of the reasons they went ahead and they put us at that number 1 spot, because we're scoring so.
Again, we've seen this. Brent Venables did it too. I know we changed the offense a little bit, but we've seen this before. So if we're sitting there patting ourselves on the back saying that we're going to outscore people, we had that type of theory or logic going into the championship game.
Yeah, very true.
So you got to have a defense.
Very true. And we all know we can.
Well, and we know because we've read the chapter.
Yeah.
We ain't got a kicker. We ain't got no kicking game.
There it goes. We knew it was
We
coming.
ain't got no.
We knew it was coming.
I mean, I'm
Tide
just
fans, I
telling
knew
you.
it was coming at some point. We
Look,
just didn't know when.
I mean, we missed a point after attempt. We kicked it out of bounds on a. Granted, he made a few
You
that he
think
had a
that was gonna
bunch
be
of
a while.
opportunities, but I mean, it kills me. We're the #1 football team in America, and we can't keep kickers.
well, listen, it
What was
finally.
our backup though? Come on.
Somebody actually, I want to say Saturday, did they were talking about that.
Yeah.
They were talking about the fact that you've got the best team in the country with such struggling so hard in the kicking game. And what was the stat? 128 out of 132.
Yeah.
In teams in the country.
We're
and
punting the ball
that's-
15, 20
You got-
yards.
You'd be
I mean,
better off with Tua throwing it deep and helping that
And an interception.
I read that. I read that fact that we should be going for it more on fourth down, not necessarily just throw some long pass up for an interception, but 4th and 3, 4th and 4. Why not go for it?
Well,
that
last year-
slant can't be stopped.
Last year, I thought Heath was over exaggerating with the kicking game, but it had more of an impact on Saban's decision making,
Right.
especially in that championship game.
No doubt.
He didn't want to take a chance there at
Well-
the end of the first half. And
Well, I mean, and it goes all the way back. I said it for the last 2 or 3 years, but I mean, look what happened in Georgia. That game would have never went to overtime if we hadn't have missed a chip shot. I mean, the game was over in regulation and we missed it. I mean, it just.
Yeah,
it-
but then Tua wouldn't have been able to come
but
in and save the
it made
game.
Georgia fans that
Then I
much
couldn't have
mad.
that.
Right.
license plate
That's
on
right.
card,
I got
2 and
something
26 on there.
That's
so,
right.
you know.
But, I just think that's a struggle. We're still struggling with that. And with our defense playing the way they are, we're going to hit the team
Yep.
that we can't score 60 points on, and we're going to need field goals. It's going to happen. I don't care what you say, and we've got to figure that out.
Well, to your comment, I do believe the new guy, Richard, is going to be really, really good. He's dealing with a little injury right now, but I think this week off is going to be beneficial for us. Terrell Lewis was a little banged up, this past week.
He didn't play a lot. I didn't understand
Yeah,
that.
they said that during the week, even up as far as Thursday, he was still a little gimpy, which is maybe the reason that we saw him.
But he would certainly help our defense.
No doubt about it. We all know that he is a specimen.
He would certainly
I
help
just
us
wanna-
defensively.
Just real quick back to the punting. You think about flipping the field.
Got to be
How
able to
many
flip
times
the field.
are we punting from the R45, the 50, and instead of them getting the ball on the 6, the 8, the 12, they're getting it on the 20,
25
or
and the 30.
25-yard line. So,
Yeah.
so I'm definitely more concerned with the punting. than
I
am
was just
I am
about to
too.
say that.
I mean-
I think Richard's going to be good. There's no question. He definitely has the leg. I mean, the biggest concern for me is the punting. When you're playing against that defense that is going to, step in there and stop us once or twice, and we don't move the football, and we've got to punt from our end of the field. I'm concerned about that. I mean, we're accustomed to J.K. Scott, who's having a phenomenal year in the pros, by the way. But we're accustomed to him and punting the ball 50 plus and 60 yards and flipping the field. And what a great player he was for us at the time. We don't have that threat anymore.
Well, we've got to keep them as deep as we can. Messick made a great point. Our offense scores quick. Our defense is staying on the field.
Get out back- yeah.
They're tired.
Yeah.
And we've got to keep these guys as deep in their territory as we can get them. And that's not happening right
Yeah.
now. It's just not happening
Well-
on a consistent basis.
There are so many positives, and certainly some things where opportunities for growth. I don't want to necessarily call them negatives. I'm trying to put a positive spin on it, but some things that hopefully will get fixed during this bye week. We should get a W there. But there's some things to look forward to. Now, the next time we play will be Texas A&M. It'll be at their place,
Yep.
which is always tough place to play. I do feel pretty confident that we should be able to beat Texas A&M. But it should be a good game. SEC game on the road, always interesting, always challenging. So we'll do it again. We'll come back in a couple weeks, and we'll talk about the Alabama-Texas A&M show. So guys, thank you for being on the show with me. I appreciate it. Tide fans, we'll be back here after the Texas A&M game on Channel 7 and 207. So pull for your team and roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.